last-minute shakeup at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning, Ryan. Is okay with
And staying in front of the day isn't always
Nice,
as simple
Ryan.
as 1,
What's
2,
up?
3. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
What's the latest on creatine?
I'm going to get back to you on that.
let NASM1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
Hey everyone, welcome to Strong Mind, Strong Body. I'm your host, Angie Miller. We had a little bit of tech issue today, but we are finally live, and I'm so glad you joined us for today's show. So today we're talking about putting on the brakes, how sometimes you have to slow down in order to speed up. I know that Mel Robbins has an analogy where you have to pull over on the side of the road, and then you have to kind of check your map and make sure you know where you're going so you don't just drive aimlessly, not knowing what you're doing. So I have a very special guest, Peter Twist. I'm going to guess that a lot of you know who he is. He is a sports scientist and a cancer survivor. And Peter's going to help us explore why putting on the brakes isn't just necessary, it can be very transformative. Peter's got some great personal stories and some really profound insight. And again, how stepping back from autopilot can help us kind of reassess the direction we're going and how we can then transform obstacles into stepping stones so that we can make intentional progress. So I'm going to bring Peter into the show. He's been waiting patiently while I deal with my tech issues and have him introduce himself. How you doing, Peter?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you. How are you doing, Angie?
I'm doing good. I'm so glad that you joined me here today and that you're so patient. So,
Well, patience, I like the dichotomy of ambitious and patience, and that technology glitch that was there. There's the first example of adaptability, patience and adaptability. And here we are. And I'd say now we're right on time because this is our moment right now.
I love that. I love that so much. See, I knew I had you come on this show for a reason. And you're right. Patience is such a profound part of being adaptable. So, Peter, I'm going to go right into it. As a sports scientist who faced cancer, how did slowing down shift from a choice to a necessity? And what did it really teach you about what it means to take progress intentionally?
Well, in a forced slowdown, for those that don't know my story, I am a sports scientist and a coach. I've had the good fortune of helping develop over 2,000 professional and Olympic athletes, do a lot of Western medicine-based research, Western exercise research. But my forced slowdown also opened up my mind to complementary medicine, holistic practices, natural practices, a more 360 degrees. And in my world, I just did everything to the extreme. I worked 80 hours plus a week. I pulled 3 all-nighters a week. I had the capacity to go on little sleep and feel great. I can wake up the next day on no sleep, have a great attitude, good energy, and like training, you adapt. And I got more and more grit and capacity. But as an athlete and then coaching elite athletes, I trained to the extreme. Being from sport, we partied to the extreme. And if we were doing an activity, we're hiking up mountains and racing down on our feet in the summer from the peaks. And we're skiing the double blacks and so on. Everything was to the extreme. So number one. And then I was also, Angie, building multiple businesses globally. And I had 6 global businesses, all of them with staff and systems and people and processes. And I knew my janitorial staff really well because it was a family. They came in at 3 a.m. to clean my offices. And a couple times a week, I'd be there at 3 a.m. in my boardroom with the boardroom table spread out working. And so everything was to the extreme. Now, my forced shutdown was I was diagnosed with stage 4 head and neck cancer. I had a tumor about the size of a baseball in my neck, and tumors by my brain stem, face, chest, and so on. And my first oncologist, 5 minutes into the meeting, started talking to me about palliative care. For those that don't know what that is, it's how to die nicely. And I right away concluded that oncologist was not smart enough nor ambitious enough to give me any kind of chance. They withheld chemo and radiation, didn't want to waste it. So I found my own team. I found new oncologists, but it did, to your question, force my entire world came to a stop. I was required to press pause on everything, every part of my life, and shift over here, 1, to survival and treatments, and 2, to healing. And then, how do I build up from that? So it's a different focus. And I'll answer this question in a mentorship. I run mentorships with just 6 to 8 professionals in the rainforest here for 3 days. And I was talking about all gung-ho about, my approach with, Angie, you and I want to team up on something. We're going to jump in with both feet and hit the ground running. And one of my participants said, Coach Twist, don't you ever pause to make sure you're jumping in the right direction? And so I started to understand the power of reflection and taking my time, having those healing practices ongoing and making sure we're aiming at the right target. The other thing that she said, which was profound for me, and the right words work with different people, but I'm coming off a chapter of doing everything full out, everything. And she said, why don't you try restoring? Why don't you rest and restore to the extreme? And I was like a dog, or like you get that dog when they tilt their head. It's like, restore to the extreme, and do it well, do it great, and get into it. So what I take away from that question about intentional process, it's a different style to the answering the question than one would expect. It's to get into it. And so my intentional process and progress becomes energetically and attitudinally like a lifestyle practice. If you think of Tai Chi, Qigong, Zen, prayer, Western prayer, the holistic practices and an intentional progress to health, to success, to life, I look at it now like a mindset, a practice, a lifestyle. And so my awakening to end of day is intentional, present, a practice. Just making healthy dandelion tea is like a Zen practice to me. It's very intentional. There's a process, there's a practice. It's a lifestyle, it's an attitude, it's an energy. You take those things for anyone listening, you can do it differently. But if you apply those type of attributes to it, you're going to do well and you're going to enjoy it.
There's so much there that it's like, I want to pause. I want to pause and I want to absorb it. Because if you go back, what I heard you say was the oncologist literally basically gave up on you and said, we're not going to waste resources. We're not going to do more radiation. You're not going to make it through this. And somewhere in your mind and in your resilience and your athletic nature, because I do think that's a bit of an athletic mindset, mindset that says, no, I'm not going down that easy. And so you sought your own care, got through it. And from there, the people that you work with, which is interesting because as a therapist and as a wellness coach and a fitness person, I hear you. Oftentimes it's when my clients say something to me that I pause. And I often say I learn as much from them as they do from me. And
Absolutely.
That's such a beautiful relationship. But so through those suggestions, if you will, you really kind of said, hey, why can't I deep dive into restorative practices as much as I've deep dived into making my body what it is? And so between those two, that led to healing. And it also led to more intentionality in your life. And I think that's pretty profound. I think that's something we can all
Mm.
learn, right?
It's that intentionality, and it's, one of the byproducts of that process is being living more. Well, at the start, when we signed on, um, and you talked about slowing down, and part of that is slowing down, owning our self-talk, and owning our mindset. Can we quiet our mind, and then can we bring our mind present? This is a wild thing to say, but I'll throw it out there for people to bite into and consider. Is, I have two beautiful daughters, and so I'm so appreciative to be a committed father, and that's just amazing. Of course, I would take a bullet for my kids, but right now they're not a part of my life. And you and I, and by nature of technology, your audience, right now, while we're on this is my whole life. And this is my world right here. And so to be able to be 100% present, to be where you are, and to give your best to it. So I have a philosophy to try and I want to show up. I may fail or stumble some days, but my intention for everybody on my path, I aim to show up with intention, to show up and leave every person and situation better than when I showed up to it. And the opposite isn't it isn't really something to strive to. And so that intention, that requires being present and positive and passionate and kind and intentional in your communication. People notice it, they'll reciprocate. Your whole life will change from that. But it's the presentness, gratefulness, living in grateful spirit, showing up right now, right here, being where we are, being fully here, and noticing. When you do that, there's so much magic in every moment, everywhere we are. To be able to notice that is powerful. The quality of life and our intrinsic happiness upgrades right away when we pay attention to where we are.
Yeah. And again, after you speak, and I always have this reaction when I'm talking to you, I always kind of want to pause and take it in. And I think it's important because I think that listening is a life skill. And
Yes.
there's so much that we can gain from other people if we just listen to their stories. And really what I heard in that, Peter, and you can take me back if you need to, but what I heard in that is that there can be grief and beauty all in one space. And that sometimes grief and tragedy can lead us toward beauty and reassessment and make us more intentional in the way that we show up for the world. And sometimes relationships and dynamics different, like we can show up the best that we show up. Does that
Yes.
mean everyone's going to reciprocate? No, because we don't know where they are. But hopefully we're not showing up because we want it reciprocated. It's kind of like when you gift give.
You
Do
give. Yes, you give. That's right.
you give to give, not to get something back. And
That's right.
I always look at that like I put on my best self, not because I expect everybody, it's almost like a codependency, not because I expect everybody to be like, oh, that Angie, she's so nice. No, 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 no. I do it because that's what I need to put out into the world.
Yes.
And if people don't reciprocate, it's that being able to step back and say, that is not about me, right?
Yeah.
I'm still going to give it my best, but I don't know where they are, and that's not personal. So I don't know if I encapsulated that, but
Absolutely.
you can want me back if you need to. But I have a question for you.
Yes.
How do you train all these athletes and clients? How do you help them distinguish between what would be productive momentum and what could actually translate as destructive rushing? Because what I kind of heard you say is all your all-nighters and all of that
Yeah.
may have needed to have some restoration in there.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Well, there's two sides to that that are both true. one is I've never known an Olympic athlete that won a gold medal that has balance. And so I think number one, we have to give ourselves permission not to have balance if we want to achieve something special. There's no one in law school right now or medical school that has full balance in their life. There's no one who just had 2 babies in the last 2 or 3 years that has complete balance in their life. I think there's chapters of particular focus while we try and check other boxes to appreciate our family and take care of our health and our mental well-being and our happiness and so on. But balance leads to mediocrity if it's a complete balance across our life and average in everything. So if you want to do something great, you're not going to have balance at that time, but maybe over your lifetime, every chapter, like every book has several great chapters, you have balance over the course of your life. But to measure on the other side of the fence, there's a difference between I'm not staying up all night now. I'm focused on long-term health. I'm looking for a long runway, although I'm not really counting years. Myself and my partner, we try and accrue meaningful experiences and personal growth and adventures. And that's more important to us than the number of years. But we are both aiming with health for a long runway. And we both, have kind of been against the ropes. We've had some health wrinkles to iron out, and here we are. But over here, if I was staying up all night working, it's focused, it's productive, it's moving my forward. I scaled global businesses off of that effort. I outpaced everybody, and it was purposeful, but it was measurable in the outcome. Over here now, for me and everyone, if we're looking at, how do we move things forward and how do we have more progress out of the time we do put in? And are we just busy and overwhelmed? And that's really it. The simple answer is we measure. What are the goals you're trying to achieve, and are you achieving them? And are you moving the needle on that? So are you producing results? We have metrics, KPIs, key performance indicators, measuring our small goals, our big goals. Or are we just busy? Are we just scattered? And a lot of people are doing a lot of busy work that doesn't take them anywhere. And over here's what matters. And a lot of times we avoid work because we're less comfortable doing it. And so the shortest route to success, A, is to get started now, and B, is to just do what matters and don't get immersed in busy work that we might enjoy or we just might be habitual about, but it's really just sort of scattered busy work that's not moving the needle whatsoever.
I have to tell you, that is not how I thought you were going to answer that question. And that's why I love it even more. Because that's such a powerful thing, because productive momentum versus destructive rushing is a lot of times, to your point.
Great wording.
What's that?
Great wording. I love your wording on that.
Well, I mean, it's sure. I mean, I'm trying to work on taxes right now. I don't want to work on taxes. So what am I doing? Staying as busy as I can. I know exactly. And so, I mean, that's a silly example, but to your point, how do we know if it's productive momentum? Well, we're getting somewhere. We see our goals. We know what they are. We're climbing toward them. We're doing what matters. We're not just climbing a step because we can say we did something. We're climbing a step because we're working toward the ultimate goal. And I think that's a beautiful way of saying that. As long as you're making progress toward your goals, then you're productive. And that's not destructive. And so now if your body starts to have wear and tear, I also think that would be a sign, because you're not going to make that movement toward your goals if you start, or you're hit by fatigue or you're getting sick. You're going to know that because your body's going to give you signals. So before we move on, Peter, I want to kind of reset here. So this is Strong Mind, Strong Body, and I'm your host, Angie Miller. I'm talking to Peter Twist. He's one of my all-time favorite humans, and he is a cancer survivor and a sports scientist. And Peter has gone through some things in his life that have really made him kind of reset and recalibrate where he is, and to be more intentional and productive, and also more than anything, to really recognize what does restoration and recovery mean for his body and for all of us. So how, just curious, how has your approach to goal setting and achievement changed since your experience?
Oh, to goal setting and achievement. Um, well, number one, I'm focused a lot more on. I always did what I was passionate about, but you just get into a mode of build, 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 and success and society imprints that on us. It has changed from an intention and alignment standpoint, Angie, where I take time to make sure, number one, I'm aiming at the right target. And that to society might be something great to achieve, but am I focused on the target in this chapter of my life? What I've done and what each of us have done in the past, who we were as a person, what we've achieved or failed at, the successes and difficulties we've been through. It doesn't determine at all. It doesn't limit what we should be interested in now, what we should be aiming at, and the level that we can achieve in that, whether it's personal success, relationship success, professional success. It's wide open. Each of us have full autonomy to decide that. So number one is reflecting to ensure I'm aligned with my core essence and current day interests looking ahead. I'm in alignment. I'm aiming at the right target. And then I know I'm aiming at the right target, and the work that I'm putting in is whether it's work to be personally successful in my small circle with my people, or professionally to help impact the world. Well, number one, do I get like a heck yeah, like let's do it? Does it bring me joy? Do I get stoked up? Do I get fired up? Am I passionate about it? Number one. And number two, as we take those steps each day in our full busy days, do I feel peaceful, positive, passionate, present, grateful? And there's no progress to me that's as important as my peace. And certainly, as we all do, if we're going to do what we need to do to put food on the table for our family, once that basis is covered, there's no progress or involvement or activity that's worth me sacrificing my peace or sacrificing my health. And those are my guardrails. Guardrails are like on the side of a windy highway that, you can shift around a bit, but you can't go off that road. Those are my guardrails.
Yeah. I have to unpack a little bit here, because there was something you said at the beginning that you didn't
Yeah.
say, but my mind went there. It went to kind of a vulnerable space, because you said that, the question was about goal setting and how it's changed since your experience. And you said, reflection, you talked about aiming at the right target and permission. And then you talked about how our past doesn't define us. And I think that
Yeah.
so many times we don't always admit this, and we don't want to talk about the dark spaces, but we get caught up in shame or regret or guilt. That's the biggest things I see my clients for. Is
Mm.
everybody spins about should have, could have, would have, did this, did that, do I deserve this now? And that's the hardest thing for us as humans, to say yes and these things happen, yes and I made these decisions, and it doesn't mean that I can't change the trajectory of my life moving forward. And so as you then move into giving yourself permission to be goal centered and to achieve things and to know that you're worthy and deserving, and I think that that's a hard thing for a lot of us. And then the words that I really want to hone in on, that I want everyone to think about, is when you get up and you get that heck yeah, and you're going towards something, does it bring you peace? Does it make you feel positive? Do you feel grateful? Because then you're on the right direction. And if it feels like you're swimming upstream, or you're ready to jump off a cliff, maybe those are when the guardrails need to be put up, and you're like, maybe this isn't actually what I thought I wanted, or it's not how I thought it would be. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's so good. You and you said swimming upstream, and I used to think that go with the flow sounded lazy and unintentional. It's like, I'm not going to go with the flow. I'm going to make it happen. And success does rely on making it happen, waiting for a posting to apply to or something. Like a lot of success and higher level success and our individual growth that we want, or our personal growth, it's making it happen, that make it happen attitude and courage. But I've learned that going with the flow is alignment. As you say, are you swimming upstream? And alignment to me is aligning with my core essence and interest, but also what's the universe asking for me? Where do I feel less resistance? Where am I starting to feel some pull and momentum? And then we know we're going with the flow for ourselves and what our community or universe wants from us. And that's a great path to be on. If I may, from because my background originally was on physical training with elite athletes. But interestingly, for those that don't know, my physical training always focused on the brain. And I trained more the software than the hardware. And when we train the software, we get a great hardware. And so the exercise looks different, but it produces exceptional skillfulness for those world-class athletes that want their whole body skillfully in motion. And current day, now there's, like there's a lot of mindset and mental well-being, and as well brain health and performance. And I'm working with stroke patients and Parkinson's and brain trauma. Have a pro athlete in from Italy who's coming off 2 brain surgeries and was only expected, to be able to walk for the next while. And, we got all his physicality back, but there's that whole focus on the brain. And when you have the physicality brain, but over here, mindset and mental well-being, I wanted to share in combination with your last question, in the early roots of our physical training, I termed for my coaches brakes, like, you put on the brakes with your car. If you think of back the Fred Flintstone style, for those that know that, you put on your brake with your leg. So brakes, we focused with our athletes on, everyone else was focused on speed and acceleration. We focused on deceleration. And the brakes acronym was balance, agility, or balance, reactivity, agility. K we threw in for quickness. And then ES was eccentric strength, your muscle action when we're braking. And that's because we know when we can stop and decelerate effectively, we can accelerate at a higher speed. And so when we look at that from a mental well-being and mental resiliency and overcoming difficulty, goal setting, mentally, emotionally, and mindset, it's so important to stop before we go, to pull back the bow, to create energy and aim properly before we go, and that decelerate to accelerate. So just in our lives, slowing down. When is it a good time to slow down? Well, when so much is happening and I'm not even clear what direction I'm going and I'm overwhelmed. And I want to graduate beyond my current, what my life looks like. And sometimes it's invaluable. Sometimes we need to push through and get more done. Sometimes we need to know it's a time I got to catch my breath. Yeah. I'm going to slow down. I'm not even going to go out and socialize with my friends because that's a fun, but a distraction. It doesn't bring me clarity. I'm going to go hike in the forest by myself and reflect and get grounded and be with my thoughts and catch my breath as well. So I have focus and clarity and energy so I can renew and move forward. It's so important for mental resilience. Part of resiliency is catching your breath, knowing when to catch your breath and get energy, clarity, and focus. And that I'll leave you with the word dichotomies. two opposites that are so much more valuable together. So with resiliency comes adaptability. Each of those is important, but you put them together, you have your superpower to navigate anything and go from survive to thrive. I love grit and grace. Mm-hmm. And so for resiliency, I need grit, but it's important and for all of you listening, and Angie spoke about, some setbacks and regrets and struggling with things like that. Give yourself grace. Really, it's a time to, take a deep breath, breathe in, breathe out, long, slow breaths, and be here with us, present, and give yourself grace. You've done the best you can with what you have, where things are in each phase of your life, right through to here. Now we're here together. So apparently you've proved that you can get through things. You can have that I can do it attitude. And give yourself grace, catch your breath before you decide to apply more energy and grit to where you're going. And I think those dichotomies in combination can serve you really well.
Peter, that I'm not even sure. I don't think I could do that justice, picking that back up. I think it's kind of like a pause, a big breath, and a wow, that was beautiful. But I will say that I love the dichotomy. I love the two things can be true. You can have grit, you can go all in, but you can also have grace. And I think that the two kind of balance one another out. And I love everything you said about just being able to give ourselves permission and grace. If we all did this thing called life perfectly, then we wouldn't even know what perfect was, because if we weren't stumbling once in a while, if we weren't falling down and getting a bloody nose, how would we even know what it's like to get up and see a beautiful day and feel like all the cards are falling into the right place? So Peter Twist, before we go, I just want to ask if anyone wants to reach you. I mean, you're a Google search away, but still, let's be real. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who want to reach out. How can they reach out to you, or what's the best way to access you?
Well, I'm going to set an example for everyone else in using technology to be efficient for you. There's many ways to contact me, but I'll just give you Instagram. And if you're not on there, that's where I'll be for contacting me. It makes it efficient for me. And I'd love to hear from you. Love to see you. My Instagram handle is Coach Peter Twist, Coach Peter Twist. And I have a great community there of like-minded people who are positive, respectful, and share their experiences as well. So there's there's really no negative noise on that page if it interests you. And I will, alongside that, in case I lose time at the end, I wanted to thank and acknowledge NASM for hosting this, and Angie for your expert hosting here in person, and providing not only this, but the many different podcasts that you've shared out there with great people, great info.
Thank you so much, Peter. You know what? You brought a lot of light into my world, and I know you brought a lot of light into other people's worlds. And you know what? So have you, the viewers, the listeners, all the people who tune in. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be here. So thank you so much, and we will see you next week.